Hello all, I am Dr. Tejendra Kaur Sarna. Welcome to the e-class on fluid and electrolyte changes during exercise. Body fluid balance is regulated by a mechanism that reduce urinary water and sodium excretion, stimulate thirst and control the intake and output of both water and sodium excretion as well as electrolytes. Water loses throughout the course of the day, including those from sweat and respiratory tract plus losses from kidney and GI tract. When fluid is lost from the body in form of sweat, plasma volume decreases and plasma osmolarity increases. The kidney, under hormonal control, regulates water and solute excretion in excess of the obligatory urine losses. By the end of this module, you will be able to understand the important role of fluid and electrolytes in body, how this balance is affected during exercise, how to overcome the effect of fluid and electrolyte balance during exercise and hence the improvement in their physical performance, various strategies helpful in rehydration during exercises. Let us get started with our module on fluid and electrolyte changes in exercise. We all know the importance of water and electrolyte in our body and the role it plays in the maintenance of our health. It forms the medium for various biological functions in our body as well as maintaining adequate volume of the body and the integrity of cardiovascular system. Proper fluid balance maintains blood volume, which in turn supply blood to the skin for the body temperature regulation. During exercise and because of exercise, heat is produced which must be eliminated from the body to maintain appropriate temperature. Regular fluid intake becomes very essential. Any fluid deficient that can incur during an exercise session can potentially compromise the subsequent exercise bound. Our body has the ability to redistribute water within the various fluid components, which provides a reservoir for minimize and it helps as a reservoir to minimize the effect of water deficient. The concentration and composition of various electrolytes form a medium for the movement of fluids between intercellular and extracellular compartments and maintaining membrane electrochemical potentials. Let us start one by one. We will start with electrolytes. Salts present in body and blood area are called as electrolytes and they are essential to maintain number 1 biochemical reactions in body, number 2 thermoregulation, number 3 adequate blood volume for cardiovascular system. The concentration and composition of fluid compartment are critical in deciding the movement of extracellular and intracellular compartments and for maintaining membrane electrochemical potentials. What is the physiology of sweating? Sodium chloride is the primary electrolyte in sweat with potassium, calcium, magnesium present in small amounts. The sodium concentration in sweat averages from 35 millimoles per liter and varies in diet, sweating rate, hydration and degree of heat accumulation. Sweat glands reabsorb sodium by active transport, but the ability to reabsorb sodium does not increase with the sweating rate. Thus, at high sweating rate, the concentration of sodium also increases. Because heat accumulation improves the ability to reabsorb sodium, a claimed person have a low sodium concentration in sweat, which can be as less as 50% for any sweating specific rate. Look at this table. It gives the potassium concentration of sweat which ranges from 5 millimoles per liter and it has a range of 3 to 15 millimoles per liter. For calcium, it is 1 millimole per liter, while the range is 0.3 to 2 millimoles per liter. And as you can see, for magnesium, it is 0.8 millimole per liter. Thirst. During exercise and heat, hypohydration must be avoided by matching fluid composition and composition with sweat loss. This is difficult because thirst is not at all a good indicator of body water requirements. In general, thirst is not perceived until a person has incurred a water deficit of 2% of total body weight loss. Under extreme situations, during situations of stress and prolonged heat stress loss, adults will dehydrate by 2 to 8% of water body level. Water constitutes 45 to 70% of body weight. With an average male of 70 kgs has a 45 liter of water, which is approximately 60% of body weight. Because adipose tissue is 10% of water, but muscle tissue is 75% water, a person's total body water varies by body composition, and this we have already discussed. In addition, muscle water and glycogen component, they are parallel to each other, probably because of the osmotic pressure exerted by glucogen and glycogen granules within the muscle sarcoplasm. As a result, trained athletes have relatively greater total body water than their sedentary counterparts by the virtue of a small percentage body fat and a higher concentration of skeletal muscle glycogen. Athletes who use diuretics for medical purposes or to reduce their body weight are at an increased risk of hypohydration because diuretic increases urine formation and generally result in loss of solutes. Commonly used diuretics includes carbonic anhydrase, inhibitors and fumicide. Diuretic induced hypohydration generally results in isoosmotic hypovolemia with a much greater ratio of plasma loss in blood loss water than in either exercise or in heat induced hypohydration. Relatively, less intracellular fluid is lost during diuretic administration because there is no intracellular or extracellular solute excess to stimulate redistribution of body water. Heat production is directly proportional to the intensity of exercise, where for sports like running and cycling, heat production is therefore a function of speed. For most other sports, however, the work intensity is not constant, but consists of rest, low and high intensity exercise periods. So, basically the amount of sweat varies on the exercise. High intensity workouts like running will cause more loss of sweat as compared to jogging. The duration of activity does not make much of a difference. During competition, in all the sporting events, it is obvious that the rate of sweat secretion varies considerably between individuals. Some people sweat more. A large part of the sweat produces drip from the body surface without evaporating. This may be considered as an inefficient sweating mechanism. The rate of sweat secretion is not directly linked to the rate of heat production. The reason for this excessive sweat secretion in some individuals is not clearly understood. Marathon runners competing under the same condition and with same fluid intake at low ambient temperature may lose from as little as 1% to as much as 6% of their body weight. At high ambient temperature, sweat losses equivalent to 8% of body weight may occur in marathon runners. This amounts to 5 to 6 liters of water of a normal 70 kg individual. Effect of environment and training status on fluid balance. Ambient temperature plays a very important role in the amount of fluid loss. When ambient temperature exceeds the skin temperature, heat is gained from the environment by physical transfer, leaving evaporite loss as the only mechanism available to prevent or limit the rise in body temperature. Hence, increased sweating rate in the heat will result an increased requirement of fluid replacement. A precaution which can be taken to prevent sweat loss and hence reduce the need of fluid replacement is to limit the extent of warm up prior to the competition or reduce the clothing worn. Effect of dehydration on exercise performance. There is a direct effect and a direct influence of dehydration on maximal aerobic power and physical work capacity. The availability and the ability for aerobic exercise of a progressive intensity is decreased when a person is dehydrated. Physical capacity and the physical work capacity has been shown to decrease even with a margin which is 1 to 2% body weight loss, water deficit, and the reduction is larger than the increasing water deficit. Dehydration results in a much larger discrements of physical work capacity in a hot than a temperate climate. In temperate environment, less than 3% body weight loss appears not to alter the maximal aerobic power. Maximal aerobic power decreases when dehydration equaled or exceeded 3% of body weight. In a hot environment, on the other hand, Chirag and Cummins in as late as 1966 demonstrated that as small as 2% body weight to moderate of 4% of body weight water deficit results in large reductions. Fluid balance and exercise performance of maximal aerobic power. It is believed that thermoregulatory system via increased body temperature plays a very important role in reduction and reduce exercise performance mediated by a body water deficit. Let us understand the fluid placement and fluid replacement during exercise. When individuals work, train or compete in warm environments, their fluid needs can increase to more than 10 liters per day. The water required to excrete the urea from protein metabolism and excess electrolyte intake add to the daily needs. However, for active individuals, this volume is relatively small and inconstitutional because they are consuming more than 2 liters of water a day. When possible, fluid should be consumed at a rate much closely matching to the sweating rate. It appears that plain water is not the best beverage to consume following exercise to replace the water loss as sweat. Look at this table. This table gives a summary of the guidelines for proper hydration. Let us read them one by one. General guidelines. It says, monitor the fluid loss, weigh in and before and after the practice, especially during hot weather and the conditioning phase of the season. Do not restrict fluids before, during and after the event. Do not rely on thirst as an indicator of fluid loss. Drink early and at regular intervals throughout the activity. Do not consume alcohol before, during or after exercise because it may act as a diuretic and prevent adequate fluid replenishment. Also, discourage caffeinated beverages a few hours before and after the physical activity because of their diuretic effects. These are the guidelines to be followed before exercise. You should drink approximately 400 to 600 milliliters of water or sport drinks before you start an exercise. During exercise, you should drink 150 to 350 ml of fluid every 15 to 20 minutes depending on the race speed, environmental conditions and tolerance, and not more than 1 cup every 15 to 20 minutes, although individualized recommendation must be followed as per the coach. After exercise, drink at least 25 to 50% more than the existing weight loss to ensure hydration 4 to 6 hours after exercise. Drink at least 450 ml to 675 ml of fluid for every pound of body weight lost during exercise. If an athlete is practicing or participating in multiple workouts in one day, then 80% of fluid lost must be replaced before the next workout. Now, there is something known as electrolyte replacement. Sodium, which should be 0.5 to 0.7 gram per liter in activity longer than 1 hour to enhance palatability and to drive to drink to reduce the risk of hyponatremia and minimize the risk of muscle cramps. Let us talk about electrolytes replacement. Let us start with sodium. It is important to include sodium in fluid replacement solutions, especially with excessive intake of plain water. For events lasting more than 2 hours, sodium should be added to the fluid to replace losses and to prevent hyponatremia. Rehydration with water alone dilutes the blood rapidly, increases its volume and stimulates urine output. The potential benefits of temporary hyperhydration with sodium salt is of very important. Sodium losses can contribute to heat cramping, especially among football players. Besides individual variations, the intensity and duration of workouts appear to play a role in sodium loss. Water soluble electrolytes such as sodium can move rapidly across the proximal intestines. During prolonged exercise lasting more than 4 to 5 hours, including sodium in replacing and replacement of fluid increases palatability and facilitate fluid uptake in the intestines. Exercise induced hyponatremia may result from fluid overloading during prolonged exercises under or over 4 hours. Hyponatremia is associated with individuals who drink plain water in excess of their sweat loss or who are less physically conditioned to produce saltier sweat. Potassium. As a major electrolyte inside the body cell, potassium works in close association with sodium and chloride in maintaining body fluids as well as generating electrical impulses in the nerves, muscles and heart. Loss of potassium from skeletal muscle has been implicated in fatigue during athletic events. There is a little loss of potassium through sweat, and loss of 32 to 48 microequivalent per day does not appear to be significant and can be easily replaced by diet. Fluid absorption. The speed at which fluid is absorbed depends on the number of different factors, including the amount, type, temperature and osmolarity of the fluid consumed and the rate of gastric emptying. Because glucose is actively absorbed in the intestines, it can markedly increase both sodium and water absorption. A carbohydrate electrolyte solution enhances exercise capacity by elevating blood sugar, maintaining high rates of carbohydrate oxidation, preventing central fluid, preventing central fatigue and reducing perceived excretion. To determine the concentration of carbohydrate in sports drink, the grams of carbohydrates or sugar in a serving are divided by the weight of the serving drink, which is usually 240 grams, the approximate weight of 1 cup of water. A 6% carbohydrate drink contains 14 to 6 gram of carbohydrate per 200 ml of water. Cold water is preferred to warm water because it accentuates changes in core temperature and peripheral blood flow, decreases sweat rate, speeds up gastric emptying and is absorbed most quickly. Let's talk about children now. Because young children are more likely to participate in physical activities less than 60 minutes in duration, there often little attention to their hydration. Children do not drink enough water when offered fluid freely during exercise in hot and humid climates. But children differ from adults in that for any given level of dehydration, their core temperature rises faster than adults, putting them at a far greater risk of heat stress. Children who participate in sport activities must be taught to prevent dehydration by drinking above and beyond thirst and at a frequent interval such as every 20 minutes. The thumb rule is that every child 10 years of age or younger should drink until he or she does not feel thirsty and then should drink an additional half a glass of water. Older children and adolescents should follow the same guidelines. However, they should consume an additional cup of fluid. One of the hurdles to getting children to consume fluid is to provide fluids they like. Providing a sports drink that will maintain their drive to drink and dehydrate them is the key. For older athletes, older, mature and master level athletes are also at a risk of dehydration and need precautions while exercising or to stay fit. Hypohydration, which is water loss exceeding the water intake in body water deficit in older individuals, can affect circulatory and thermoregulatory functions to a greater extent and may be caused by a lower skin blood flow, causing core temperature to rise. Because the thirst drive is reduced in older adults, they need to drink adequately before exercises, well before they become thirsty. Women athletes need to drink more than men during interval exercise in the heat. Fluid balance is maintained between when palatable carbohydrate and electrolyte solutions are offered. Then we have hyperhydration, where there is a greater than normal body water. Hyperhydration has been suggested to improve thermoregulation and exercise heat performance above that achieved with hypohydration. The idea that hyperhydration may benefit exercise performance arose from observation of the adverse consequences of hypohydration. The theory was that expanding body water might reduce the cardiovascular and heat constraint of exercise by expanding blood volume and reducing blood tonicity, thereby improving exercise performance. Let us conclude. More the duration of exercise performed, more will be the rehydration in the body. The fluid losses occurring during the excessive sweat loss would lead to both volume and osmolarity changes, leading to reduction in working capacity. This can be prevented by keeping the water balance in the body adequate throughout the period of exercise performance. Maintaining this fluid balance would depend on various factors such as rate of fluid uptake in the body, distribution of water throughout the various components of the body. Athletes have to drink more water against their thirst sensation, since thirst is not a good indication of water loss levels in the body. During hot and humid climate, it becomes more important to restore the body fluids by helping the recovery. Post exercise, not only the fluid balance is needed to restore, but it is also the electrolyte balance which requires the attention. Rehydration, along with addition of small amount of carbohydrates to the rehydrating drink, may improve sodium and water and will improve the palatability. Palatability of a beverage is a major issue when a large amount of fluid is being consumed.